14 people watched my father decide my worth over dinner. Not in anger, not in haste, calmly, like it was overdue. When he told me to apologize to my brother or leave his house, I finally understood where I stood. If you've ever been silenced to keep the peace, subscribe now. These stories aren't about drama, they're about what it costs to stay quiet. My father's dining table seats 8 comfortably, 14 uncomfortably, and 1 sacrificial offering when the family needs balance. That night, it was me. The house smelled like roasted garlic and lemon, the kind of smell that tells guests effort was made. My mother's effort. She always cooked like Harmony could be prepared if she followed the right steps. My father sat at the head of the table, napkin folded precisely, posture rigid, the same way he'd sat my entire life, like a judge, waiting for testimony he'd already decided how to interpret. I was 36 years old and still bracing myself before speaking. My brother Daniel sat 3 seats down, relaxed, laughing too loudly, commanding attention the way he always did. He had the kind of confidence that never had to earn itself, the kind that comes from growing up knowing mistakes would be explained away, softened, forgiven. My husband Mark sat beside me, shoulder touching mine but mentally elsewhere. He had perfected neutrality, smile when expected, stay agreeable. He believed conflict disappeared if ignored long enough. It doesn't, it just grows quieter. Dinner started politely, comments about the new chairs, questions about work, my mother refilling plates before anyone asked. Normal, the dangerous kind of normal that convinces you tonight might be different. It never was. So, Daniel said, tapping his fork lightly against his plate, are you still doing that non-profit consulting thing, or did you finally get a real position? Conversation dipped just enough for everyone to hear, then carried on like nothing sharp had been said. I smiled. I always smiled first. I manage operations for 3 organizations now, paid, full-time. Daniel nodded slowly. Right, I just worry about stability. You know how Dad is about direction. There it was. He never insulted me directly, he outsourced it to concern. My father cleared his throat. Daniel just means it's important to have a clear trajectory. I met his eyes. I do. He didn't meet mine. I'm sure you think you do. Mark's knee bounced once, then stopped. A warning. Don't engage. I had swallowed moments like this for years. Holidays, birthdays, casual Sundays that turned into evaluations of my life choices. I was always too sensitive, too defensive, too much. Daniel worked inside my father's company, same building, same last name on the door. When he failed, it was framed as experience. When I succeeded elsewhere, it was framed as avoidance. Midway through dinner, Daniel leaned back, arms loose, comfortable. I heard the board passed on that expansion proposal. Mark stiffened. That was a preliminary discussion, not a rejection. Daniel shrugged. Still, doesn't inspire confidence. I set my fork down carefully. Why are we talking about my work like it's a family performance review? My father finally looked at me, fully. Because you're part of this family. The irony settled heavy in my chest. Then treat me like it, I said. Silence. Real silence this time. Daniel exhaled, amused. See, this is what I mean. You always take things personally. My mother glanced at my father, said nothing. Mark cleared his throat. Maybe we should talk about this later. My father ignored him. No, he said. Then calmer. This keeps coming up. He folded his napkin and placed it beside his plate. A signal. Decision mode. You've been difficult lately, he said to me. Resistant. For responding? I asked. For challenging, he corrected. There's a difference. Daniel smiled. Not wide, just enough. You're letting him disrespect me. My father shook his head. He's your brother. No, I said quietly. He's your son. That landed harder than I expected. My father's jaw tightened. Watch your tone. I am, for once. Daniel leaned forward. Dad, it's fine. I don't want to cause issues. A lie wrapped in politeness. My father nodded, then looked back at me. This ends tonight. I knew that voice. I'd known it since childhood. The voice that didn't ask. You will apologize to your brother, he said, for the tension you've brought into this house. My chest felt hollow. For what? For undermining him, for your attitude. Mark finally spoke. Maybe we can talk about this later. My father ignored him. Or, he continued, eyes fixed on me, or you can leave. The room held its breath. I waited. For my mother, for my husband, for anyone. No one moved. 14 people, watching, measuring how much I would swallow. I stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. Daniel's smile faltered, just slightly. I didn't look at my father. I didn't look at my husband. I walked around the table, straight toward my brother. I stopped beside my brother's chair, close enough to see the faint crease between his eyebrows, close enough to hear his breath change. He still thought this was theater, a moment where I would either apologize or embarrass myself trying not to. He tilted his head up at me, smug, waiting. The room was so quiet I could hear the wall clock ticking behind my father's chair. Each second landed like a warning. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't rush. I said, "You've been lying about who you are for years, and everyone here knows it. They just protect you because it's easier than admitting they built you." That was it. One sentence. Flat. Measured. No insults. No shouting. No accusations I couldn't stand behind. Daniel's smile didn't disappear immediately. It froze first, like his face had missed a step. "What did you just say?" he asked. My father stood up so fast his chair tipped backward. "Enough." "No," I said, still looking at my brother. "Actually, now it's enough." My mother made a small sound. Not words, just discomfort. Mark grabbed my wrist. "Please," he whispered, "stop." I gently pulled my arm free. Daniel laughed, but it came out wrong. "You're having a moment. Sit down." "You don't get to tell me what to do," I said. "Not anymore." My father moved between us. "You will apologize right now." "For telling the truth?" I asked. "You're humiliating him." I met my father's eyes. "You humiliated me for years by letting this continue." Daniel scoffed. "This is unbelievable. You're jealous, that's what this is." "No," I said. "I'm done." That word hit harder than anything else I'd said. My father turned to Mark. "Get your wife under control." Mark flinched. He looked at me, then at my father, and for a moment, just a moment, I thought he might finally choose me. Instead, he said, "Can you just apologize so we can go home?" Something in me went very still. I looked around the table, my aunt staring at her hands, my cousin avoiding eye contact, my mother pressing her lips together like silence was a virtue. They had all benefited from this arrangement. Daniel as the golden son, my father as the unquestioned authority, the rest of them as witnesses who never had to intervene, and me as the pressure release valve. "I'm not apologizing," I said. My father pointed toward the hallway, "Then leave." There it was again. Not anger, certainty. This house was never mine, not really. I was a guest who overstayed by having opinions. I nodded once. "Okay." Mark blinked. "Wait, what?" I turned to him. "You heard him." He stood abruptly. "You're being dramatic." "No," I said. "I'm being precise." My father crossed his arms. "You're choosing to walk out over pride." I picked up my coat from the back of the chair. "I'm choosing not to beg for dignity." Daniel finally stood. "You think you've won something here?" I looked at him for the last time. "I think you're scared." His jaw tightened. "Of you?" "No," I said. "Of what happens when I'm not here to absorb it." Silence swallowed the room again, a deeper one this time, the kind that comes after something irreversible. I walked toward the door. My mother finally spoke. "If you leave like this, don't expect things to be the same." I paused, hand on the doorknob. They never were. Outside, the night air felt sharper than I expected, cleaner, like I'd been holding my breath indoors for years without noticing. Mark followed me onto the porch. "Get back inside," he said, low. "You're blowing this up." I didn't blow anything up. I stopped pretending it wasn't already broken. He ran his hair through his hair. "You embarrassed my family." I laughed once, not loudly, just disbelief. "Your family embarrassed me for years. You helped." "That's not fair." "It's accurate." He looked at me like I was someone he didn't recognize. "Where are you going?" "I'm going somewhere I don't have to earn basic respect." "You're really leaving?" I stepped off the porch. "You stayed." Behind me, the front door opened again. My father's voice carried out into the night. "If you walk away now, don't come back expecting apologies." I turned. "I don't want apologies. I wanted boundaries." He shook his head. "You always wanted more." "Yes," I said. "I wanted better." I walked to my car. No one followed. As I drove away, my hands shook, not from fear, but release, like something tight inside me had finally snapped and let go. I didn't cry, not yet. I pulled over 2 streets away and sat there, engine running, staring through the windshield at nothing. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. "You didn't have to do this." I didn't reply. Another buzz, from Mark. "Please come back, we can fix this." I turned the phone face down. That night wasn't the end. It was the beginning of consequences. I didn't go home that night. Not because I was being dramatic. Because I knew if I did, the version of me that always folded would be waiting by the door. I checked into a small hotel off the highway. Clean, quiet, anonymous. The kind of place where no one asked questions or cared why you were alone on a weekday night. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the opposite wall until morning. Not crying, not spiraling, just recalibrating. By sunrise, the messages had stacked up. My mother first, then my aunt, then my cousin. All versions of the same sentence. You didn't have to say it like that. Not, you were wrong, not, he hurt you, just, your timing was inconvenient. Mark called at 7:12 a.m. I let it ring. At 7:14, a text. Dad's furious. Daniel's not speaking. You really crossed a line. I typed, erased, typed again, then deleted everything and locked the phone. By noon, the family had decided on a story. I was emotional. I'd been under stress. I'd misunderstood Daniel's intentions. And most importantly, I had ruined a family dinner. That was the charge. Not cruelty, not favoritism, disruption. I drove to my office anyway. Work had always been the one place where I didn't have to perform emotional gymnastics to exist. By mid-morning, my father called. I answered. You embarrassed us, he said without greeting. Good morning to you too. This isn't a joke. I'm not laughing. He exhaled sharply. Your mother hasn't stopped crying. Then maybe someone should ask why she let this go on for decades. Silence. You owe your brother an apology, he said finally, and you owe your husband one for putting him in that position. I leaned back in my chair. You mean the position where he had to choose? Yes. I noticed he did. My father's voice dropped. If you don't fix this, you're going to lose your marriage. I closed my eyes. If my marriage only works when I stay quiet, I already lost it. That's not how families function. No, that's how hierarchies do. He hung up on me. That evening, Mark came to the hotel. He didn't knock at first, just stood there like proximity alone should solve things. When he finally spoke, his voice was tired. You didn't tell me you were planning to do that. I wasn't planning anything, I responded. He sat on the edge of the bed. You could have waited, you could have talked to me first. And you would have told me to let it go. He didn't deny it. I'm stuck in the middle, he said. I looked at him. No, you're standing exactly where you chose to stand. He rubbed his face. They're my family. And I'm your wife. He hesitated. That hesitation did something final inside me. They're asking you to apologize, just to smooth things over. I shook my head slowly. That sentence already ended things. You just haven't caught up yet. His voice cracked. You're blowing up our life. No, I said softly. I'm stepping out of the blast radius. 2 days later, Daniel sent me a message. It wasn't angry, it was worse. I don't know what your problem is, but Dad's disappointed. You should really reflect on why you're so resentful. I laughed. Out loud, alone. 3 weeks passed. The family stopped calling. Mark moved into the guest room to give space. Then he started staying late at work. Then he stopped coming home altogether. When I asked him directly where this was going, he said, I just need things to calm down. I replied, they won't unless I disappear. He didn't argue. The separation conversation took 20 minutes. No yelling, no begging. Just two people finally admitting they wanted different prices for peace. The fallout didn't stay contained. My father's business began losing key staff. People who'd watched Daniel fail upward for years suddenly weren't sure they wanted to stay. My aunt called once, voice trembling. He snapped at me last week. I didn't know he could be like that. I said nothing. She added, I guess you handled it better than we thought. That was the closest thing to an apology I ever got. Mark filed first. His lawyer framed it as irreconcilable differences aggravated by external family conflict. I signed without comment. 6 months after the dinner, I ran into my father at a grocery store. He looked smaller, not weaker, just uncertain. You didn't have to scorch the earth, he said quietly. I met his gaze. I didn't scorch it. I stopped watering something that was killing me. He nodded once. Your brother's struggling. I know. He waited. I didn't ask how. When he walked away, I felt nothing. No triumph, no regret. Just space. That's when I knew I'd survive this. A year after that dinner, my life looked unrecognizable from the outside. Smaller apartment, fewer people, no family group chats, no shared holidays, no emergency calls that weren't actually emergencies. And yet, I slept better than I ever had. Not because things were easy, they weren't, but because nothing in my life required me to lie to myself anymore. The divorce finalized in silence. No dramatic court scene, no last-minute confessions, just signatures, stamped papers, and a handshake between lawyers who'd seen this exact story 1,000 times. Mark didn't fight for much. He kept the furniture, I kept the books. We split the rest like people dividing leftovers after a meal neither enjoyed. The last thing he said to me was, "I hope you find what you're looking for." I didn't correct him. I already had. What I found wasn't happiness. That word is too loud, too performative. What I found was alignment. My mornings were mine. My thoughts didn't need pre-approval. My feelings didn't have to wait their turn behind someone else's comfort. The quiet wasn't lonely, it was accurate. I stopped bracing myself for disappointment that never arrived. My father tried once more. He showed up unannounced one Saturday afternoon, standing stiffly outside my building like he wasn't sure he was allowed in this version of my life. "I won't stay long," he said. "You never do," I replied. He sat, looked around, took in the modest space, the calm. "You could have handled things differently," he said, softer now, not accusing, almost pleading. "So could you," I said. He nodded. "Daniel's not doing well." I waited, let him finish. "He's angry, defensive, says everyone's against him." I shrugged. That's what happens when accountability shows up late. My father leaned forward. "He's your brother. And I was your daughter." That landed. He stared at his hands. "I thought keeping the peace was my job." "No," I said gently. "Your job was protecting your children. You outsourced that to silence." When he left, he hugged me. It was awkward, brief, unfamiliar. It didn't fix anything, but it didn't hurt either. That was progress. I didn't reconcile with my brother. He never apologized, never reflected, never asked why everyone kept leaving his orbit. Last I heard, he'd moved departments, then companies, then cities, always chasing fresh rooms where no one knew the pattern yet. I didn't wish him harm. I also didn't wish him access. People often ask if I regret it. Walking out, not apologizing, choosing myself so publicly it made everyone uncomfortable. Here's the brutal truth they don't expect. I regret waiting so long. I regret every year I spent mistaking endurance for virtue. I regret every dinner where I swallowed words to keep someone else warm while I froze. What I don't regret is the walk, because walking away didn't make me smaller. It made everyone else visible. Without me absorbing the tension, my family had to face it. Some did, some didn't. My mother eventually started therapy, not for me, for herself. She told me once, voice careful, "I didn't know how much I leaned on you." I know, that was the problem. We speak now, occasionally, honestly. Not close, but real. And real beats closeness when closeness costs you your spine. The most unexpected change wasn't external, it was internal. I stopped rehearsing conversations that might never happen, stopped explaining myself to imaginary juries, stopped shrinking truths to fit rooms that were never meant for me. I learned the difference between peace and compliance. Peace is quiet but solid. Compliance is quiet and hollow. One night, months later, I hosted a small dinner of my own. No hierarchy, no unspoken rules, no loyalty tests disguised as love. Just people who listened when someone spoke. I caught myself laughing, unguarded, unmeasured, and for the first time it didn't feel like a performance. It felt earned. If there's one thing this cost me, it was the illusion of belonging. But here's what it gave me instead. Self-respect that doesn't negotiate, boundaries that don't apologize, a life that doesn't ask me to disappear to keep it intact. That dinner wasn't the end of my family. It was the end of my role as their emotional buffer. And I'd make that trade again, every single time.